With OTA starting today for the Chicago Bears, we're going to start getting some looks at some of the new acquisitions of the Bears and how those depth charts are going to end up working out. Today, we're going to take a focused look at the defensive depth chart and some of the position battles that may be decided in OTAs. We're going to take a look at that. Plus, we're going to look at the Bears' options as the starting center, which I think are more and one surprising one that most people have not thought of. And then we're going to ask, how much realistic improvement can we expect from the Chicago Bears offense this season? All that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host here, Haize. If you want to follow me, you can do so at CEO Haize. If you want to follow the show, you can do so at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform. Let's go ahead and get into the content for today. So OTAs are starting for the Chicago Bears. And with all the new acquisitions that we have this season, it's going to be a fun one. It's going to be one where we're finding our balance of players. And there are a couple of position battles as well that we could start take a look at, some of the players that may start to fill that out. But when you specifically look at the Chicago Bears defense, right, there are some key battles that could, come along in OTAs as we look at it. When you look at, like, for example, the starting defensive end position for the Chicago Bears, we know that DeMarcus Walker is definitely going to be one of those starters, as he was one of the key acquisitions for the Chicago Bears this offseason, and he's going to bring in a skill set of being able to get to the quarterback that we were sorely missing last season. And when you look at the other side of him, right, you have Travis Gibson, who's more than likely going to be that starting defensive end on the other side, unless there's a last-minute acquisition or something by Ryan Poles. But we're kind of expecting, even if Ryan Poles does make a trade for an edge, that more than likely that's going to come maybe after a couple of weeks of the season, like when we, went after a N'Keal Harry or something like that, or Chase Claypool, if he really gets a chance to evaluate it. And so, Travis Gibson, Dominique Robinson, Rasheem Green, those are all kind of players that could go to that other edge position. But, we're expecting it to go to Travis Gibson unless something crazy happens. Last time Travis Gibson had a formidable defensive line, he did get 7 sacks. So while I do have him on my list of players that could end up losing their position and not be on this team by the start of next season, he's factored in and probably being that second defensive end, and rightfully so. Then you move to the interior defensive line, where we had the most acquisitions. We got the returning starter, Justin Jones. But other than that, we're looking at Andrew Billings, a new acquisition, Zach Pickens, Javon Dexter, all kind of factoring into the rotation there, right? And I would not be surprised at all if one of Javon Dexter or Zach Pickens ends up taking that other interior defensive lineman spot, especially when you look at the Bears already in rookie minicamp, using them both as 3 techs and as 1 techs. So because of the upgrades that we've made overall on that interior defensive line, we can take a look at what's going to happen. But either way, we have a nice rotation in that interior defensive line of those 4 players. And it's going to be one that could pay off hugely for the Chicago Bears in next season in those position battles. Then you look at our linebacking core. Much improvement on that linebacking core. Overall, Zach Sanborn, the only returning starting linebacker. Add to him TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, who's going to be on the middle. And we have a linebacking core that is good in coverage, also good at stopping the run, solidly there. And we're going to see huge improvements for that. But when you look at some of the other things on the rotation that may work out, Noah Sewell, right? What does he end up turning into for the Chicago Bears? Does he push Jack Sanborn for the other starting linebacker position, which we talked a little bit about on yesterday's live stream? But that's kind of some of the things we're looking at there. And then the biggest one that I think coming into OTAs that the Bears are going to take a look at is the cornerback position. You're looking at Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon returning as starters for sure, but Tyreek Stevenson is set and looks like primed to take over the spot from Kendall Vidor. And so we'll take a look at what that means as well, and, starting to get a little bit of a feel for how that rotation is going to look out. The Chicago Bears defense, as much as the offense is going to get as much of the conversation solely because Justin Fields is on that side of the ball, we also really do need to continue to look at the growth that we can make defensively. And in OTAs, setting that hits principle for the new acquisitions and the rookies, really getting to take a look at Matt Eberflus as well as how they fit in as a whole unit. It's going to be interesting to see how this defense takes shape, right? And you don't want to overlook any potential of a rookie coming in and maybe stealing a couple of positions or not. So that's going to be fun to see. Really fun, at least for most people. I'm excited to see that as well, and we'll get a great look at it and take a look. I'm really the defense of the Chicago Bears. I really want to see step up big time, right? In both the running and the passing game to be better than what we were last season. Because a formidable defense to pair with the growth that we may see offensively for the Chicago Bears, it could get us back into playoff contention at some point. We don't want to rush it, but we do want to see that growth as well. Now, with one of the biggest questions coming into this season was the center position, right? We move on from Sam Musty Mustipher. Thank God he's no longer on this team. Lamar Jackson, I pray for you if that man ends up having to start some games for you. But the center position for the Chicago Bears all but been earmarked for Cody Whitehair to move back to the center where he was a former Pro Bowler at that position. But you have to as well look at some of the depth there, right? You have Cody Whitehair, you have Lucas Patrick, but then a surprising one. Well, also you have Doug Kramer as well, who got hurt. But, the fact of the matter is he was one of the offensive linemen we drafted last year in 2022 from Illinois again. So, but he was placed on the IR early in August last season, and he missed the entire season. So, really taking a look at him as well. But then there's one that you don't want to overlook either, and that is J. Tyree Carter, right? A player that didn't play much for us at all last season, but they kept him on the 53-man roster mainly because they didn't want to risk somebody picking him off the practice squad. So while in J. Tyrese Carter's career, he's played both guard and center at the Senior Bowl last season, he has a potential to be a center as well, and to see how the Bears maybe end up developing him and taking a look at him and Doug Kramer to eventually take over that position for Cody Whitehair. Now, we expected them to go after a center in this draft. They ended up not, right? And that could be pushed down in next season. But do not be surprised if they take, especially in preseason, especially in OTAs, especially in practice, if you start hearing about J. Tyree Carter taking some snaps at that center position as they try to look at what he can ultimately bring at that position for the Chicago Bears. J. Tyree Carter is an interesting prospect, right? Doug Kramer, more straightforward there. He's an interesting prospect as well. And in me talking about J. Tyree Carter, that is not a slight to Doug Kramer at all, because I do think Doug Kramer has a lot of potential, and especially here in a Chicago Bears uniform. But when you look at J. Tyree Carter, right, if he ends up working out, and he could be a versatile offensive lineman and depth piece for the Chicago Bears as they try to use him at guard and at center. So do not be surprised at all, like I said earlier, is if during OTAs, during this time before the season starts and in preseason, we see J. Tyree Carter line up at a few different positions for the Chicago Bears. One thing that we know about Matt Eberflus and this coaching staff, they are not afraid to change position of players. Just look at Travis Gibson, who's played now 3 different positions just since this new regime has taken over, right? And so the same thing with J. Tyree Carter as they look at his growth, right? And what he could ultimately be and that potential from him, you can absolutely see them using him at multiple positions on that offensive line. Now, I do think that he has a lot of growth left to do, right? I think that there's a reason he didn't play much last season, but the fact that they kept him on the roster, they kept him on the 53-man roster at that, not the practice squad, says that they see something in him that they think that they can develop. And do not be surprised if that's developed by using him at multiple positions, both now before the season starts and during the season, if he shows that he can get some rotational snaps as well. So that's what we want to look at with the Chicago Bears team, specifically on that offensive line, and some of the questions that could be answered. Don't necessarily think that all of them are going to be, but some questions that could be answered for the Bears here in training camp and things that they look at. Cody Whitehair is going to be the starting center. If Cody Whitehair is not the starting center to start, that means that somebody came in and completely wowed in training camp and in preseason play. So, we'll end up seeing what that takes a look at. Kind of other questions around, starting positions, of course, is the running back position. We talked about it on yesterday's live stream. I fully expect Khalil Herbert to be the starting running back, and he does need to step up big in the passing game and in pass protection more than what he has before as the starting running back. But there are dogs behind him that are waiting to get their opportunity and to eat there. The wide receiver positions all but shored up as far as the first 3. Of course, still having Equanimeous St. Brown on the team. Tyler Scott, who's looking to do some things. Velus Jones as well, who's potentially looking to rebound from a bad rookie season overall, even though he looked kind of better here on the last couple of games of the season. Tight ends basically shored up. We don't have as many questions on the offensive side of the ball, at least I don't think, as far as who's going to be starting. The bigger questions are, how the offense is going to perform. And because of that, we're going to talk a little bit about what is really the potential for the Chicago Bears offense next season. And of course, it all comes down to really the growth of Justin Fields. And this has been kind of overstated, and it will continue to be as the offseason goes on until we actually see the games. But Justin Fields' growth and development is the biggest thing to look for on that offensive side of the ball, as well as the growth of Luke Getsy, right? You don't want to overlook the importance of an offensive coordinator and your play caller growing as well, and that is things that we're looking for. It's Justin Fields, it's Luke Getsy. Of course, how the weapons come together, how that wide receiver room overall comes together and uses, what happens with a running back room, the offensive line, which has been improved over last season as well. How does that improvement on paper translate to on the field? All those questions are there, right? But it all comes down to Justin Fields' growth and Luke Getsy's comfortability opening up the playbook more. We saw so many flashes on opening drives last season of a dynamic offense. And then we went back to a heavy run offense that just did not pass the ball much. There were games that we went through and we passed the ball like 15 times throughout the whole game. And it's hard to really evaluate your wide receivers. It's hard to really grow your quarterback as a passer when you can't keep him upright and you're not passing the ball so much. That's where we need to see the most growth from the Chicago Bears team, is on that offensive line, in Justin Fields' comfortability, and in Luke Getsy opening up that playbook more. And so as we go to OTAs and we're going to start hearing who's shining, who's not, who's building chemistry with Justin Fields, right? Who's doing those type of things, who wowed the coaches, who reporters when they're able to come in. As we start getting those type of things and that news to come out, pay attention. Pay attention to how they communicate about it, how they talk about how the weapons of Justin Fields is all coming together, how Cole Kmet, maybe he's ready to take another leap, who could be huge for the Bears in that case, and Robert Tonyan as well. So the offense is the thing that I'm looking at, and I'm saying it's so much improvement there from where we were last season. Yes, are we the offensive line that some Bears fans thought we were going to be with what we had as far as money? No, a lot of Bears fans thought we were going to go after these names and these huge names. We didn't, but we got offensive linemen in here who definitely are better than what we started off the last season with. We had so many questions on that offensive line. We got some gems out of it. We saw where Braxton Jones, how Tevin Jenkins grew, right? And so because of that, adding in Nate Davis is as well, and what he's going to be able to do for the Chicago Bears, moving Cody Whitehair to center, bringing in Darnell Wright, right? And just seeing how he grows as an NFL prospect. It's going to be fun to see. But the way that the offensive line grows and how they flourish, right, is going to be the key thing. You hear a lot of these pundits, a lot of these national media people saying that the Bears offense may not be that much better than it was in 2022 than what it's going to be this year. And I kind of disagree with that notion, because we knew why we were limited offensively. We understood, the people who watch this team week in and week out, why we did not pass the ball very much. And as much as some crazy Bears fans are going to say, well, it's because Justin Fields isn't that good of a passer, it's more than that, right? He needs to grow as a passer. Yes, there are times where he held on to the ball too long, but he has not been given the time of a quarterback to really go through those motions and build in the correct muscle memory. So second year in this scheme, third year as a pro for Justin Fields, he's going to come in and hopefully make that leap of comfortability and familiarity in the system and in the scheme, and having more time to process things, to go through those progressions, to grow as a quarterback. That's what we need to see from Justin Fields in year 3, but his second year as a full-time starter, right? The growth of Braxton Jones as well, having now him and Tevin Jenkins on the left side of the ball, protecting Justin Fields' weak side, right? Those are things that we're going to need to continue to watch out for, right? Braxton Jones now paired with Tevin Jenkins, having Nate Davis with the rookie of Darnell Wright there, watching that growth, watching that progression. I think it's going to be huge for the Chicago Bears, and it really does come down to the offensive line, Justin Fields and his utilization of the weapons, and overall Luke Getsy and how much he opens up this playbook for the weapons that we have and for Justin Fields as a quarterback. We can have a very exciting brand of football for us next year on the defensive and offensive sides of the ball. But more importantly than that, we want to see growth, and we want to see this team. We need to be back to the monsters of the Midway, right? And in a division that is open the most that it has been in probably a decade plus, the Bears, we need to start seeing the Bears move in that proper area. I'm not ready to say that the Bears are going to outright win the division this year, because we need to see the growth first, right? And as we go through those motions, as we grow as a team, hopefully, that's when that picture started to become a little bit more clear. But I'm excited about the start of OTAs, excited about some of the news and kind of the rumblings that are going to start coming out of here. This is the time that I personally live for as a football fan and as a fan of the Chicago Bears. I'm glad that you guys are going through this journey with us as well. That's it for the day's daily episode of Chicago Bears Central. Make sure you're following the show at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform. You can also send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the show, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related because of you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all. Oh, by the way, for those that are still here, catch me on Bleacher Report on the 27th, rocking it out for the Chicago Bears on a live stream on Bleacher Report, holding it down for the squad. Make sure you guys are there for that as well. We'll keep hyping it as we go along. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.